When you think of horror, what comes to mind? Is it a silent house in the dead of night, ripe with possibility and stagnation all at once? Is it the cold steel of a knife, the warm rush of blood? Is it a whisper, a growl, a voice coming from where it shouldn't? Horror is one of the most personal things to define. It is a human constant throughout history, one of our most base emotions. So, how do you define horror? What does it mean to you? Hello, dear viewer. My name is Sparrow, and this is Sparrow Catches Up, a channel where I delve into all of the things that make our hearts race. Now, my initial impetus for this channel was to talk about horror novels basically exclusively, maybe an occasional foray into like an interesting short story or maybe a movie here and there. But the more that I stared at my blank channel, the more that I realized I can't limit myself like that to just one format. I love horror so much. I practically live and breathe the genre, and I want to be able to share it with you all in all of its gory glory. So then this begs the question, what does horror mean to me? If you had asked me a couple years ago, I'd say it was everything. And not in the nice way. I was scared of even the most comedic of horrors. Hell, even Scooby Doo used to really bother me. I wanted to like horror, and I tried here and there. I caught bits of The Grudge, I managed through The Ring. The Messengers was really my first proper horror movie, and I still 100% attribute that to the twist that it has that I will spare you from mentioning if you haven't seen the movie. But in the end, I was still terrified. Now, that all changed when my husband's family invited me to go see The Conjuring. Now, at the time, my husband and I were still just dating, and not just dating, but going to different schools. And if anyone's done that before, you know how hard that can be. So I was taking every single opportunity I could to spend time with him. So, despite my trepidation, I said sure, and I prepared myself to be scared out of my mind. Previous to this, I had seen a horror movie in theaters, and that was Zombieland with my family. Now, when I went in, I was absolutely convinced that I was going to hate it and that I was going to be terrified and have nightmares. I literally sat through the previews and cried because I was so scared and was very happy to find out that it was a lot more of a comedy than it was a horror. But The Conjuring, I'd seen the trailers for, and I knew that it was like a much more traditional horror movie. So I just sat there in the previews, waiting for it to start, dread in my stomach, and then I was riveted. I mean, I did almost claw my poor husband's arm off at the scene with the wardrobe, but I loved it. And something knocked loose in my head, and I haven't really looked back since. The Conjuring isn't anything that I would call scary nowadays. It's always going to hold a special place in my heart, though. I went from realizing that if I was in a theater, I could manage to watch a whole horror movie, to going home, watching horror Let's Plays all the time, to reading horror novels, and now here I am, a bit of a horror late bloomer. So, to me now, horror is my comfort zone. It's a fun little backdrop to my life. It's a place where I ironically go to feel safe. I think of it like this. I have a very anxious personality. I would normally be someone you wouldn't expect to like horror. However, if you look at horror, whatever's going on in my life, at least it's not that. Like, sure, I have a stressful thing going on in, let's say, college, but at least I'm not being gaslit into a cult and lighting a bear on fire. Or Yeah, I'm meeting some new people this weekend, but at least I'm not spending the night at Camp Crystal Lake on Friday the 13th. Horror is a way for me to look at the absolute worst of something and come away knowing that I can control that situation. I can pause the movie if I need to. Granted, I rarely do nowadays, unless I need to get up. Hell, I could even turn it off if I wanted to. But most of all, horror's fun. I didn't understand that for a long time when people said it, but I think I get it now. I've grown to like that twisting in my gut as I wait for the scare, the creeping dread of realization as you see the danger before the characters do. While it used to keep me up at night, running through the rationales of, well, it can't happen to me because I'm not in X location or I'm not doing Y thing. Now it's just this pleasant thrill. I'm so thankful to have gotten to this point too. I really find horror to be one of the most fascinating genres because of it specifically playing with one of our most primal emotions, but also because it can be such a divisive medium. Now, what scares me to death might bore you to tears. What makes me nauseous from just gut wrenching terror might be completely mundane to someone else. It's these dichotomies that I find fascinating. For example, I have a friend who loves cosmic horror. They love analyzing it, they love the monsters, they love the implications, the entire top to bottom. Me? It's boring for the most part as far as horror goes. Now, I do enjoy some of the trappings, but it doesn't scare me. I like a lot of other subgenres though. Psychological horror, classic haunted house and ghost stories, body horror. I love body horror. Folk horror, cult horror, botanical horror, found footage. I could go on and on and on. I have very few things that I dislike. Really, you've heard almost the entirety of it. Not a big fan of cosmic horror. Slashers aren't my favorite. Granted, for slashers, it's more so of a I just need to be in the mood for it type thing, like Taco Bell. Slashers are the Taco Bell of horror for me, I guess. It's greasy, satisfying, but not an everyday thing for me. So, that being said, I want to share some of my favorites with you. I would like to start with movies. Obviously, The Conjuring is a huge thing for me. I still really enjoy it, specifically The Conjuring. Not The Nun, not Annabelle. The offshoots are not that great. The Nun did make me laugh out loud a couple of times, but I don't think it was going for that. The It remake was fantastic. Bill Hader, I'm never going to forgive you for how hard you made me cry. I loved Oculus a whole lot. I'm a huge Mike Flanagan fan. I would literally watch anything that man puts out. He could put out a 17-hour compilation of paint drying, and I would watch it because I would trust him to make it interesting. Speaking of Flanagan, Haunting of Hill House, spectacular, beautiful, amazing, no notes. Where do I send my therapy bill? If you want another horror series, Marianne on Netflix is a French series dealing with a witch and a curse and a town, and it is terrifying. Highly recommend it. As far as books go, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to start with an author, Nick Cutter. The Troop was my very first Nick Cutter novel. It's amazing. If you like body horror, you have to check it out. I would say if you get into his books, please check content warnings, especially if you are bothered by things like animal death. He has a lot of that in his novels, but if you can take it slow and get past it, or even skip the parts if you have to, they're absolutely worth the effort. The Queen is my favorite, though a very close second is The Deep. It was my favorite before I read The Queen. Now, other than that, Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fato, which is behind me on my shelf. You can't see it. It's just in frame. It's right there. Tab to Hell and Back. Loved it. Hilarious. It is a satirical gothic horror novel, and I think it does an excellent job of it. I plan to do a deep dive into its themes at one point. Same on sort of a lighter side of things. C.G. Drew's Don't Let the Forest In is amazing. It is a young adult horror novel, but don't let the young adult tag discount how amazing it is. It's terrifying. The twists and turns I legitimately did not see coming, and that is rare for me. The creatures in it are fantastic. Cannot recommend that one enough either. I did end up with a advanced reader copy through NetGalley for their upcoming book Hazelthorn, which is also absolutely fantastic. It drops in October. Please do yourself a favor and pick it up when it comes out. Now, in a more big name sense, Misery by Stephen King made me so nauseous I actually almost threw up. Carrie, also Stephen King, obviously, huge fan of it. I'm a big fan of epistolary novels, and Carrie is an epistolary horror novel. Epistolary, if you aren't familiar with the term, is a novel told through various forms of media like letters or articles or interviews. Dracula is a really good example of it. I finished episode 13 while I was in the hospital by Craig DeLuey. It's an epistolary novel as well. If you like found footage horror movies, or if you are a fan of ghost hunting series or used to be a fan, pick it up. Massive nostalgia vibes. Now, I'm going to have to stop myself on novels, or I will just list literally everything I've ever read and start getting into thrillers to boot. But I want to give you one last traditionally published horror piece, and that is Talk to Me. Taaqtumi. It is an anthology of Arctic horror written by Arctic natives or descendants. And it is just spectacular. I'm not usually an anthology person. Short stories can be difficult for me to get really invested in, which is kind of funny to say. That'll make sense in a second. But there was just constant knockout after knockout in this anthology. Huge highlights. If you pick it up, check out Lounge by Sean Keats-Swalek and Rachel Keats-Swalek Tinsley, and check out Strays by Repo Kempt. Lounge, sci-fi horror, simulations, isolation, a little bit body horror. Strays does something that I really enjoy with horror pieces where you string along little breadcrumbs and so you hit that final, oh shit moment. And it also has some extremely gruesome and haunting imagery. If you know, you know. Moving on to more outside of the general public's consumption of horror, I love internet horror. I like it in basically all of its forms. I'm a fan of real life stories that are covered preferably in a respectful manner. I'm a fan of the SCP Foundation and that entire wiki. I love stuff on r/3 Kings, r/No Sleep. It's generally a fair bet that if I am awake and on my computer, I'm probably reading or consuming some sort of internet horror daily. Shrouded Hand, Davis Morgan, The Lore Lodge, Postra, Ryan Hollinger, Pugzer. I could go on and on. There are so many channels that I consume that do not need my shout out. However, if you haven't heard of some of those names, please go check them out. They are absolutely fantastic and they deserve your time and your eyeballs. I'm a huge fan of anything dealing with the Hanged King in the SCP universe. I love the idea of freaky games on r/3 Kings that deal with like alternate reality stuff that you can slip into. I love a lot of the stuff on r/No Sleep, and yeah, sure, not all of it is amazing. I know it has that reputation, but there are some legitimate gems in there, and plenty of geodes too that just need a little bit of a crack to get good, which is to say they just need a little bit of TLC and editing. I have to give the people props that post things like that online, especially for free, for so many people to read when I don't even have the guts to do that myself. I'll go ahead and leave this here, or I could seriously talk about this for hours. I hope this gives you a little idea of what horror means to me and a couple of the ways that I enjoy it as a medium. And if you feel similarly, maybe stick around a while. I'll be sharing book reviews, movie discussion, deep dives, and more surrounding all the things that make you look over your shoulder at night. And I hope you'll come along for the ride. I would love to hear in the comments below what horror means to you or some of your favorite pieces. And I just want to say thank you for creeping it real, and I'll see you next time. Bye.